Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel, Cruising Out of Sight. I thought it would be kind of neat to put a video together highlighting the last 23 cruises I've taken. I started cruising in July of 2021, and I've done 23 cruises since then, so almost once a month average. So I thought it would be neat to take and put together a spreadsheet that ranked each experience on the cruise ship and then put a score against those, and then let's see which ships came out on the top and which ones came out on the bottom. I was really surprised at the findings that I had. I expected in my mind that certain cruise ships would rise to the top, and that actually wasn't the case. So it was a pretty neat exercise. So let's get right into it. Let's take a look at those rankings. Let's see what was good. Let's see what wasn't so good, and we'll wrap it all up later.
I just wanted to quickly go over the cruises that I've been on in an attempt to shed some light on or give some context for the ranking system. So the first cruise that my youngest daughter and I went on was Freedom of the Seas in July of 2021. It was just a 3-night sampler cruise going to Coco Cay and Nassau. We weren't really sure if we would enjoy cruising or not, and boy, were we wrong. Or right, I'm not sure which. But man, we love cruising. The second cruise was my wife and I. We went on Liberty of the Seas out of Galveston, Texas. This was a 7-night Western Caribbean. My next cruise was a solo on Jewel of the Seas out of Miami, a 7-night Western Caribbean. This was one of my favorite cruises thus far. I met some amazing other solo travelers, and we had a fantastic time gambling together, eating supper every evening, and just having an overall good time. The next one was on Odyssey of the Seas. My wife and I went out of Fort Lauderdale on a 7-night Western Caribbean. My next was a solo. This was my longest one thus far. This was on Adventure of the Seas out of Newark. It was a repositioning that took us to Panama and then back to New Orleans. We actually didn't stop at Panama, and the plan was not to go through the Panama Canal. They had some issues going on at Panama, so we did not stop there. But this was another fantastic cruise, just a nice, long, sea-intensive cruise. I really enjoyed it. The next one was on Jewel of the Seas. This one I took my youngest daughter and oldest daughter, and we went out of Amsterdam to the Arctic Circle. This was a 12-night cruise. Really fantastic. We met up with a friend of my daughter's, had a great time. The scenic cruising was amazing. The Midnight Sun was absolutely amazing. Just a great cruise. Next one was back on Adventure of the Seas out of Newark. This was a 9-night Eastern Caribbean with my daughter and I. My 8th cruise was on Explorer of the Seas with my wife. We took a 9-night Southern Caribbean out of Miami. My 9th cruise was another solo, this time on Radiance of the Seas. This was a 14-night Panama Canal repositioning from Los Angeles. Really fantastic time on this one as well. Next one was on Jewel of the Seas. This was out of Port Canaveral, just a 7-night Western Caribbean that I did solo. And then I did a side-to-side on that cruise. The next one was Mariner of the Seas the very next week, and this was also out of Port Canaveral. This was a 5-night Western Caribbean that I did by myself as well. Next one I did was a solo on Radiance of the Seas. This was a 9-night Western Caribbean out of New Orleans. Really enjoyed the Radiance class ships. I was kind of hoping that they would score high on my scoring list. We'll see how that works out. Next one was my first Oasis class ship. So number 13 was my wife, my youngest daughter, and I on Oasis of the Seas out of Miami on a 7-night Western Caribbean with Coco Cay. And then I did Oasis a couple weeks later with my oldest daughter. We went on Oasis out of Miami again, another 7-night Western Caribbean. And then I tried Harmony out. So Harmony was number 15. Did this in March of 2023. This was out of Miami. It was another 7-night Western Caribbean. Number 16 was on Mariner of the Seas. This was in April of 2023 out of Port Canaveral. This was just a 4-night sailing. I usually only take these shorter ones if I can lump them together as part of casino offers. So that's what this one was. And then number 17, 18, and 19 were my first actual back-to-backs. I went on Independence of the Seas for 3 cruises in a row in April of 2023. That was a 4-day, then a 3-day, and then another 4-day. And my youngest brother joined me on one of those cruises, and we had a fantastic time. The next 2 were back-to-backs also, this time with my oldest daughter on Navigator of the Seas out of Los Angeles. This was in May of 2023, and we did a 4-night Catalina and then a 7-night Baja, Mexico cruise. We had a fantastic time on that one as well. I really enjoyed the Voyager class ships as well. And then the next one, number 22, was my first non-Royal Caribbean. We were told by our travel agent that we should take Princess cruises to Alaska. So we took her word for that, and we took Grand Princess to Alaska in June of 2023. And we took that out of Vancouver northbound to Alaska. Alaska was fantastic, but we were not too crazy about Princess. My daughters were crying halfway through the cruise to go back to Royal when they saw Radiance of the Seas off in the distance. So that wraps it up for my cruises that I've done to date. I have a few planned. I've got Liberty and Oasis of the Seas in September, and then I've got a back-to-back on Jewel going from Newark to Quebec City and back, a 20-night total in October. So really looking forward to get back on Jewel as well. All right, so hopefully you made it through that many cruises. It took me quite a lot longer than I thought to get through it all. So let's talk a little bit about the grading system that I used. I tried to come up with categories that made sense to me while not trying to be nitpicky about things. I'm a pretty easygoing cruiser, so that was fairly easy. The first category I came up with was port experience. So this is a amalgamation of how easy is it to get to the port, how expensive is it to fly there, how expensive the hotels are in the area, etc. I'm not super concerned about any of those things. I will fly anywhere to go to a cruise port. It doesn't much matter. I'd rather go to a cruise port that's easy to get to and is cheap to stay around, but not big on my list. So I gave that a 5 as far as importance or weight. Next one is the check-in experience. How easy was it to get through the check-in process, through security, give the bags to your porters, the whole deal there. Again, not super important to me. If I had a bad experience, I wouldn't like it, but it's not going to stick with me for very long. Once I get to the ship, I'll probably have forgotten already. Ship visual. I'm visually impaired, so take this one with a grain of salt. I did give it a 7 for whatever reason, but if I saw something, obvious, ripped up carpet, something dirty, it would be important to me. I wouldn't constantly want to see that kind of stuff. Ship maintenance. This one's actually pretty big for me. I don't know, it's a pet peeve or something. When I'm walking up a stairwell, I don't expect the railing to be like hanging off by one bolt, almost ready to fall off on somebody. I have seen that again and again, and I've brought it up to ship personnel, and it doesn't seem like anybody really does anything about it. To me, it's a safety item. They should be fixing these things. Another one is if I'm in my stateroom, a big one that keeps happening to me is I get a shower where the temperature of the water cannot be adjusted. It's just blazing hot. No matter how far you turn the dial to the cold direction, it never gets any cooler. Not even, lukewarm. It doesn't change the temperature at all. I hate that. Ship bars. Again, I'll get a bar, drink, whatever. It doesn't really matter to me a whole lot. Ship venues. I love my entertainment. I love a variety of places to go and fantastic entertainment at those venues. So that's fairly important to me. Views, again, very important to me. I want to be able to see the ocean when I'm on a cruise. I don't want to feel like I'm at a on-land resort. I want to feel like I'm out on the ocean. So that's a big one with me, especially out at night, looking up at the stars. I absolutely love that. So I don't like a ship that is ship-centric. I like a ship that is outside-centric. We talked a little bit about entertainment at all. That's very important to me as well. The crew. The crew is part of what makes a cruise for me. Friendly crew that aren't overly chatty. It's a balancing act there, but a crew that remembers your name. I love stuff like that. The casino, pretty important to me. I spend a decent amount of time in the casino, so I want there to be a variety of games, although I only generally play one game, but it's nice to have that live action of the casino, not a small, cramped casino that stinks of smoke, etc. I don't really care a whole lot about. I may eat a meal or two in there, but it's not my favorite place with all the crazy traffic and my visual impairment. It's somewhere I usually steer clear of. The main dining room, love the main dining room. I want there to be nice, warm food, friendly service, quick service. I like to get in and out, so that's high on my list. Small food venues. I love some variety. I love an El Loco Fresh or the fish and chips. I absolutely love that as well. So that's fairly high on my list. The main pool. I don't spend a whole ton of time in there. It's usually a ton of kids in there. I prefer the quieter solarium with adults only, so that's low on my list. The solarium is next. Fairly important to me. Stateroom. I don't care a whole ton. I don't spend hardly any time in there besides sleeping, so it would have to be something really major for me to care. Itinerary, super important. But I was on the fence about this one. I wasn't sure whether to rate a ship poorly because of its itinerary, since the ships do change itineraries, but anyhow, it's fairly important to me. And then finally, disembarkation. Again, as long as they get me home, I don't really care. So we'll put a score against each one of these for every ship that I've been on, and we'll see where they come out. So, all right, enough of the suspense. Let's take a look at those rankings. All right, starting at the top, ranked number 1, Jewel of the Seas. This was our Norway Arctic Circle cruise. I'm not surprised by this at all. I absolutely love Jewel. I've been on Jewel 3 times before, and I'm scheduled to go on her 2 more times this year. Fantastic ship, great views, which I absolutely love. Super, super friendly crew when we were on board as well. The itinerary on this trip, you couldn't be beat. I don't know. Alaska was very, very close, but I'm not surprised by that at all. Next one up is Independence of the Seas. I'm actually very, very surprised by this one. I looked back at the numbers, and what I found is that I think the Freedom class ships have a good rounded availability of different options as far as the small venue food, variety of bars. Those ships are still a little on the big side, so they have the fantastic entertainment. So that actually makes sense that Independence would have come in second place. Adventure being third, that's my repositioning cruise in August. I'm not super surprised by that one either. I absolutely love Adventure. I've been on her twice. This time I was with my daughter, and it was an itinerary I had never done before, so I think that kind of weighed that towards bringing that to the top 5. Next one, Jewel, second mention in the top 5. December of 2022. I'm actually really surprised by this one. I had to actually go back and look at the numbers to see why this one ranked up so high. Obviously, it has the views that I really like. The entertainment on this cruise was especially good for whatever reason. The itinerary was just kind of a generic Western Caribbean itinerary. Nothing else really stood out, so I'm really surprised the numbers showed that ranked pretty high. I wasn't surprised to see Jewel on there, but this specific itinerary I was. And then rounding out the top 5, Navigator of the Seas coming in 5th. Not surprised at all. That Baja, Mexico itinerary is fantastic. I'm not crazy about Los Angeles itself, but the cruise port's nice. You can do other things around there. The ports, I think, is kind of what pulled Navigator off from that spot in the top 5. Just looking down from spots 6 through 10, I'm not surprised to see the Oasis class make a showing in that block. I'm not personally crazy about Oasis class. I don't like standing in lines, and I find a lot of that. I don't like a ton of kids. I don't mind kids, but a ton of them on a ship I don't really like. So that's kind of why the Oasis class got pushed down into the 6 through 10 positions. 11-15, no big surprises there, except for Radiance of the Seas, that October 2022 cruise. I absolutely loved that repositioning cruise through the Panama Canal, but the itinerary wasn't enough to pull that up enough. You know what I really don't like on Radiance is they have plastic shower curtains in the regular staterooms, and they cling to you when you're trying to take a shower. I absolutely hate that. 16 through 20, the only surprise I see there is that Jewel of the Seas, the December 2021 sailing. That was one of my absolute favorite cruises. It's just that the ranking system didn't pick up on that. The best part to think about that cruise was the friends that I made, and that obviously was not a category on there. And then finishing out the last few, I'm not surprised at all to see Odyssey down there. I don't like the views on that ship. I was not a fan of that at all. I'd take a Oasis any day over a Quantum class ship. And then Freedom being the last, I'm not surprised at that. I'm not a super big fan of those super short itineraries. So not a surprise there. I really expected Grand Princess to take the last spot. The thing that saved Grand Princess was the itinerary to Alaska. There wasn't a whole lot we really liked about Grand Princess. Don't get me wrong, if you look at my review of that trip, I made a whole video about our Alaska trip. There are plenty of things that I liked about that trip on Grand Princess, not just Alaska, but there were some neat things. The medallion, I think, is kind of neat the way it worked, although I recently saw that they changed the rules and they're going to start making you pay for that. But anyhow, I was surprised that wasn't on the bottom, but the rankings are the rankings. If you look at the numbers, they're a pretty tight bunch. There's not a whole lot of numbers separating them. Even from top to bottom, there's not a lot of numbers separating them. With a low of 924 and a high of 1143, you only got 200 points separating. I probably should have given myself a certain number of points and then allowed myself to allot them on the value of each category. Instead, I think I probably overvalued some of the categories. You can see that I don't have hardly any that are below 4 on the ranking as far as value. So anyhow, I thought that was a neat exercise. It panned out in some ways that I thought it would, and other ways it wouldn't. Just want to spend a little bit more time talking about the highlights. I do want to call out the good things on each cruise or each ship that I've gone on. Starting back up from the top, just want to call out Jewel. What a fantastic design the Radiance class of ship is. Absolutely love the views. That's got to be the best thing about that ship. Independence of the Seas, I think the best part about the Freedom class is just the ability to have all the different venues packed into a fairly small foothold, so a ship that can still go into a lot of the ports, but yet it's got a great variety of stuff. The Adventure of the Seas, that was a great itinerary. My daughter and I went to the Turtle Sanctuary at Grand Cayman and absolutely loved that excursion on that cruise. Jewel of the Seas, December of 2022. I already talked a little bit about that. Just absolutely loved that ship. It was a generic itinerary, but the crew, I think, kind of pulled that one off. Navigator of the Seas, again, I talked a little bit about that. That itinerary down in Baja, Mexico is fantastic. Harmony of the Seas in March of 2023. Love the new smoke-free casino on that ship. I think that is a plus. And then the availability of everything Oasis class has to offer as well. You just kind of can't beat that. Independence of the Seas, April of 2023. Loved sailing on Independence with my brother down in Florida, and Port Canaveral is so easy to get to. My parents also live close by, so makes for a cheap hotel stay. Mariner of the Seas, again out of Port Canaveral in December of 2022, though this time. Love the Voyager class of ship. Voyager is actually the only one of them I haven't been on yet, but I've loved my time. Much like the Freedom class, it's a decent sized ship, a lot of stuff to do, but the crowds don't seem to be terrible like they are on the Oasis class. Next one, Radiance of the Seas, January of 2023. Sailed with my oldest daughter on this one too, and we had a fantastic time on this one. Absolutely loved the crew. This was one of the best crews that I had run into, and even ran into some people from my previous sailing on Radiance, and they remembered me 6 months later by name. That always just blows me away. Oasis of the Seas, March of 2023. Absolutely love Park Cafe. The salads are amazing. I can't wait to go back on Oasis next month and get some more of those salads. Back to Navigator of the Seas, talked about that. Still fantastic itinerary. Independence of the Seas, again, that's that Port Canaveral, so easy to get in and out of there. Love that place. Back to Oasis of the Seas for February of 2023. The ability to go back with my other daughter, almost on a side-to-side, back-to-back situation, but not quite, just a couple weeks apart, was fantastic. Back to Radiance of the Seas in October 2022. This is my Panama Canal crossing. That was amazing, going through the Panama Canal and seeing how the locks worked. Great itinerary with a lot of really, really good stops. Mariner of the Seas in April of 23. Love the ability to go up on the helipad on the Voyager class of ship. I absolutely love the darkness, the ability to see the stars at night without any light pollution around. That's one of my favorite things. Adventure of the Seas again, April of 2022. That was a neat one. Going into New Orleans was interesting. I had never been there before, so that was really nice. Explorer of the Seas, September 2022. That was my wife and I down to Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire. Absolutely love Curacao. Definitely get there if you have the chance. Jewel of the Seas again, December 2021. Talked a little bit about that. The friends I made on that cruise were fantastic. Grand Princess, June of 2023. Alaska. What more can I say? Majestic, majestic views. If you haven't seen my 360 video footage of that on my YouTube channel, definitely check that out. It's so amazing. And Nugget Falls at Mendenhall Glacier. I was blown away by that. So Alaska, what more can I say? Odyssey of the Seas, February 2022. My wife and I had a really, really fun time on the bumper cars on Odyssey. Something very unique to do on a cruise ship, so highly recommend. Liberty of the Seas, September 2021. This is my wife's favorite ship. We made such good friends with one of the bartenders on Liberty on that cruise. We had a fantastic time with some friends. That was just a really, really good cruise. We made some really, really good friends as well on that cruise, so shout out to Jack and Jessica if you're watching. And then last but not least, Freedom of the Seas. How can I not like my inaugural cruise? This is what got my foot into the water, made me realize that I loved cruising so much. So fond memories of Freedom of the Seas from that very, very short cruise, but it was a good one regardless.
So I hope you thought that was interesting. I definitely thought it was neat. I expected those Radiance class ships to come out on top. I really enjoy the views. They don't have all the bells and whistles, but the entertainment and the core things that I like to do are all present on those ships. And they just don't have all the crowdedness that you start to feel on the larger ships. But I was really, really surprised that the Freedom class and the Voyager class came out so high on my list. I think they're a good mix of the things I like to do, but still have some bells and whistles on them. So I think that was really neat exercise. I'd like to continue doing this and continue ranking, maybe in a little bit more detail per ship, and even when that experience is fairly new in my mind, to see how those new ships rank as well. I do have some new ships on my schedule. I got 5 more scheduled this year. There's still some room to squeeze a couple in November, December of this year. So I think that'll be really, really interesting. I'm also revisiting a few ships that I've been on, but out of different ports. So I think that'll be really, really neat. If you enjoyed this video, if you could slap a like on there, I'd really, really appreciate it. In the comments below, if you could put, what's your experience on these ships? What's your favorite ship? I'd love to hear that as well. If you'd like to hear future updates on reviews on ships that I've done or tours that I'm going to post, excursions I've done, etc., slap a like and subscribe on there as well. And that'll let me know that you want some more of this content. I really, really appreciate it. See ya.